Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL? NFL draft prospects and rookies? Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man Jay Rich.
Count that money, man.
Now wipe the crust out of your eyes, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. Let's get it, GMGP. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Let's get Jay Rich off the screen. It is Monday, June 19th, 2023. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G. I appreciate y'all being here. Happy Juneteenth to everybody out there. Man, a little late. CP time. I was busy celebrating championships yesterday. So feeling good today in the building. Glad to see everybody here. Got a lot of people in the building. 7 GOAT rings. Ty DeClaire, Matt Bruning, Josh in the building, Jimbo, Alex, good morning to you. Gabe in the building, Patrick, L. Wood, Fizzle Dollars. What's happening, Fizzle? Top Dog in the building, Craig in the building. Jay Rich, how you doing this morning, baby? Bringing you in the screen. How you doing, Jay?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, I see how you had me on the screen. You took me
you
off,
off,
even though I was there.
Yes.
Everyone in the chat, Ty's asking for me, 7 GOAT rings is asking for me. I was
My
there,
bad.
but I get it. You got to have your spotlight at the front. You got to say good morning to the people. It's a big day, though, Ray. Big day for a lot of reasons. We have a league starting today. I'm very excited for that. But I do want to wish everyone a happy Father's Day. I called you yesterday. I wish you happy Father's Day. You had a massive Father's Day. Ray, I have to ask you right off the rip. Was it the best Father's Day of your life?
Oh, hands down, man.
Hands down? Good.
Hands down, Jay. Thank you. Yes, you did call me, and I do want to wish everybody out there, every dad out there, a happy Father's Day. But it was the best one. It was the most memorable Father's Day for me, you know, man. Growing up, my pops wasn't in my life growing up, right? My parents were divorced when we were younger, and, you know, growing through sports, and I was always into stuff, man, Jay. It's crazy, bro. I remember being like, I don't know, man. I had to have been early grade school age, you know, 2nd, 3rd grade. And for Christmas, man, when everybody would be asking for toys and skateboards and shit like that, I remember asking my mom for a weight bench. Like, I wanted a weight bench. I wanted a punching bag. I wanted to work out. Like, I just loved sports, man. And I was fortunate enough to play in a little college ball, get recruited by some D1s and sort of live out that dream. But yesterday, man, I got to watch my son, my oldest boy, Jay. I talk about him on the show all the time, that he's a baseball player, and he got selected to another all-star team that participated in the Coach Pitch World Series to qualify for the regionals. Then they go to state, and if they win state, then they could qualify for the actual Little League World Series. And yesterday, they took down the championship, man. World Series champs.
Let's go.
East Texas event. We had to play against a select team, the Dallas Dodgers, and they got it done, man. And here's my little boy right here, 6 years old. 4 of them things, Jay. He's 6 years old. Damn. He's got 3 championships and all-star stuff, and just won this tournament, man. So I had to shout out my little man, Rod Drew. Here goes the ring right here, Jay. World Series champs. They're all in the office. You can kind of see him up there somewhere on the screen, all his MVPs and stuff. But yeah, man, best Father's Day ever, dude. Little man is talented, Jay. So we just got to keep him going. And dude, baseball is all weekend event. I did nothing all weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all damn day consumed with being outside. So I'm a few shades darker because of the sun. It was 100 damn degrees out there, man. But the best Father's Day I could have ever asked for, to watch my little man win a chip and be a little good player, bats lead off and pretty fast. So it was fun, man. So I hope everybody out there enjoyed time with their children, man. It's the hardest fucking job in the world, but it's the best job in the world of being a parent. So we got a lot of good stuff on tap on the show today. Y'all saw the thumbnail, Jay. Pressure cooker time, man. Pressure cooker time for some of these guys. But Jay, we gotta start this thing off talking about the people who pay the bills, Underdog Fantasy, some of the risers and fallers from an ADP perspective over the past week. I don't know if anybody out there has been tapping into what I've been doing over on the channel, but I'm trying to get about 3 to 4 Underdog team draft reviews out every single week. Just sort of going through, everything that's happening and talking about the mistakes, rating my team, and things of that nature. So we're doing that over on Underdog Fantasy. But let's get into the risers and fallers right now.
From the biggest and brightest stars to the last round pick, we have you covered for everything on Underdog Fantasy. Let's get into it and let's get that money, baby.
All right, Jay, let's get the graphic up, and I want you to run through some of these risers and fallers and talk to us about what's going on in Underdog right now, man.
So the first guys I do want to talk about, I can go over the list. Antonio Gibson, Romeo Doubs, Cam Akers, Rondale Moore, Van Jefferson are the key risers this week. Now, that is in the top 150. There are some other ones I will touch on briefly that are outside the top 150. We're focusing on the main guys that we're drafting to help us win championships. Yes, those smaller guys, those 200th picks can make a difference, but really, we want to see the shift in the market of the more important, highly drafted players. And Antonio Gibson, probably the biggest riser, and it's simply because Ron Rivera's talking about him again. It seems like every time Ron Rivera opens his mouth, someone's value changes. And last week, he said he could be a matchup nightmare for opponents in the team's new offense under Eric Bieniemy. That's something we've dreamed about for Antonio Gibson. It seems like for years now, we've been waiting for him to be unleashed. We know he's a great receiver. We saw it at Memphis. We have seen it at spurts in the NFL, but Brian Robinson comes in, gets the majority share of the rushing load, and now all of a sudden he's kind of irrelevant at times. I know that Mike over at 4D Chess is super pumped right now over the Antonio Gibson love, but the biggest guy I think when you talk about just his value ascending is a player like Cam Akers. So Sean McVay came out in a radio interview and he said Cam Akers will be a central figure of the team's offense this season. He's really capitalized on a lot of the forward momentum he built at the latter part of last year, and he's going to be a huge part of what we're doing moving forward. That sounds pretty good, right? Cam Akers, if I'm remembering correctly, was RB4 for the last 4 weeks of the fantasy football season last year. So you look at what he could do this year, and while we don't like Matt Stafford and we don't like what the Rams have on defense, if you're just looking from a fantasy angle, you have Cooper Kupp, you have Cam Akers, you have Matt Stafford. And maybe you want some Tyler Higbee, but that's about it. I don't really see a lot of other guys making waves on the Rams. And based on where these guys are drafted, I think you can make a case to draft all three of them. And while the team may not be good, they'll have to put up points because they're going to try and be in games. Whether they win them or not, we don't care. We want them to put up points and win. And then you look at Van Jefferson as well on this list. Should be the wide receiver 2 behind Cooper Kupp. And while that doesn't seem like a very fruitful role, if he can get that, he could be a guy who gets 100 targets. And maybe they're not the best targets in the world because most of them are going to go to Cooper Kupp. I think that he could have a role. And in some of these best ball formats, you could find some value with a Van Jefferson. But I did want to touch on Juju Smith-Schuster because he is apparently dealing with a knee injury, and he's the biggest faller right now. So he's a guy that we all pegged as the number 1 in this offense for the Patriots, and now he apparently has an injury, and you're looking at him and you're saying, well, what's going on? He had an injury at the end of last season on Kansas City, went through the Super Bowl. We haven't heard reports of surgery. We haven't heard reports of physio or anything like that. It's just still dealing with an injury. He's falling down. And then now, Ray, you have DeAndre Hopkins coming in. So DeAndre Hopkins, maybe, right? Maybe. Mike Reese reported that it could be a $10 million deal with up to $13 million total with the incentives. A little bit less than Odell Beckham, but still not a bad contract for an aging veteran. So you have the Patriots system, Bill O'Brien already talking about how he's going to make this offense better, make it more like the Alabama offense. You potentially could add DeAndre Hopkins, but you have Juju Smith-Schuster, the guy that you got to replace Jakobi Meyers, injured. And so, Ray, I have to ask you the question, is DeAndre Hopkins a must for this Patriots team? Because they're not tanking. They want to win games. But if their top receiver, who we think is maybe above average at best and not really a number 1, can they win games in the AFC and especially in the AFC East if they don't have a number 1 in DeAndre Hopkins?
No, they're not winning the AFC East. They don't have the quarterback to do that.
Win games, period. No, win games, period.
Sure, they'll win a couple of games. They got a dominant rushing attack with Ramondre Stevenson. The offense will be improved. We're going to talk about Mac Jones a little bit later in the show. I don't know if he is or is not the answer long term. I don't believe that he's the sole problem of that team, right? The biggest problem that the New England Patriots had last season is the fact that they had a goddamn defensive coordinator running the offense. Just, again, this is the highest. There's nothing higher than the NFL football-wise. This is the top elite job. Whatever your profession is, think about the elite gold standard in that field. That's what the NFL is. And inside of that organization, they thought it would be a good idea to give Matt Patricia the keys to the offense. So I don't know if Mac Jones is the future. I don't believe that he is the sole problem of that team. And what does DeAndre Hopkins do for Mac Jones? Probably good. I mean, you add something like that to that offense, I can see why Juju's ADP is dipping a little bit, right? The fact that the injury, potentially DeAndre Hopkins coming over, but is he a necessary requirement to make New England a contender within their division? They're still not going to beat Buffalo. They're still probably not better than the Jets. They're not better than the Jets, and I don't believe that they're better than the Miami Dolphins. This is going to be a long, slow grind for the New England Patriots, no matter how they slice it. And if I'm DeAndre Hopkins, is he looking to win or is he looking to get paid? To me, this is a move. He just wants to get paid. New England's not winning anything in the AFC East. Again, I'm not saying Mac Jones is the problem, but I don't know if he's the answer either. So that's sort of my take on that one. Some of the other risers and fallers, the correlation between Gibson rising and Brian Robinson falling, people buying into the Bieniemy hype. We'll see. Romeo Doubs getting pumped up. A lot of people talking good things about Green Bay. You're talking, and we're going to talk about some mini camp takeaways, but everything that I've read from Packers camp, Jay, has been very positive. And it's very difficult to find negative information on players right now, right? Everybody is great. Everyone's an all-pro. Everyone's looking in the best shape of their life. But there have been a lot of positive reports coming out of Green Bay on Christian Watson and Jordan Love and Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft and the entire Packers offense. So, this is why we do these videos, and this is why participating in a format like BBM4, Best Ball Mania 4, is so fun, because you get those pockets of values changes throughout the summer. It's still only about 25% filled up at this point in time, so make sure you go over to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code WAKEUP. You get an instant deposit match up to $100 to win $3 million if you take down BBM4. If you win first place, that's 3 M's, and you get access to the Destination Devy Discord for free for an entire season. All you got to do is use the promo code WAKEUP, but those are the risers and fallers right now over on Underdog. Make sure you tap into the YouTube channel, because we will be dropping videos weekly over there, just some strategy pieces. Do a couple of live drafts coming up in the future, Jay. But there's some stuff, and you talked about it a little bit, Jay, some stories coming out of mini camp. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch on from an Underdog perspective, or if you want to just see what's happening around the NFL.
The only thing I wanted to add is we talked about Gibson, but there is actually rumors. Josina Anderson put out that the Commanders are putting out feelers for Kareem Hunt as well. So it could be even more disgusting for that backfield.
Oh,
but Ray,
boy. Well, I mean,
positive news here. Sam Howell, now the starter going into training camp. Ron Rivera changed his tune yet again. Maybe next week he'll say that Jacoby's the starter. We don't know. But today, as of right now, June 19th, Sam Howell, QB1 for the Washington Commanders. I'm pumped, man. We'll see. But yeah, outside of that, it's small news. Some Khalil Shakur hype.
What do you think about old Sam Howell? This is not part of the segment, but just since you dropped that news, Kareem Hunt, I'm not worried about Hunt, man. I think his best days are behind. Here's the thing. If I told you, and be honest, if I said close your eyes and think about Kareem Hunt, what jersey do you see him wearing? What jersey do you see him wearing?
I see him wearing a Browns jersey. I do, because he's been on the Browns for a few years.
I see him wearing the Kareem Hunt that I think of as Kansas City Chiefs Kareem Hunt, and that was a long time ago.
But the Kareem Hunt that I thought you were going to ask is, what do you picture? I picture a plotter, slow running back in a Browns jersey.
No, people are still holding on to the idea of what he was in Kansas City, and that was, 4 or 5 years ago? It's over. There is no more of that Kareem Hunt. It's just, that's just the reality.
Not good
and
for Kareem Hunt.
That doesn't mean he's terrible, but he's not the guy that was running through defenses when Patrick Mahomes was a first-year starter. That is years removed. I see people pumping up Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette and Ezekiel Elliott, and I'm just like, stop. Stop, dude. These guys are on the last couple of holes of their career. They're not even approaching the back nine. They're in it. They're the last few holes of the back nine. So I'm not worried about Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, none of those guys, man. They're just bodies. They're just bodies at this point in time. So, but we do have some things going on, Jay. You definitely wanted to touch on it, so let's get into what's happening around the league.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what he's doing.
What the hell is going on?
What's up? What's happening?
Let's get it, Jay. So let's get into the storylines, man. You got it.
All right, Ray. So this is probably one of my favorites, because we talked about this after the draft. Clayton Tune, Ray, getting some hype in Arizona. Could we see the Clayton Tune experience with Kyler Murray out? I think this is a huge story because, one, I want to see Clayton Tune play. I think we already know what they're going to have if they don't play him, and obviously Kyler Murray's not going to be available. And then as well, Hollywood Brown is dealing with a foot injury. So the Arizona offense right now, pretty wide open. Yeah, I know. You see your reaction. What, another day, another Marquise Brown foot injury. But yeah, we could see Clayton Tune at the helm. We could see some extra Michael Wilson early in the season. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is not there. We will see, but this Arizona offense could be all over the place with Clayton Tune at the helm. So I am excited to see that. Do you have any thoughts on Arizona knowing that Clayton Tune could be there? No? Maybe? No? You don't care? You don't want to see some Clayton Tune?
I've picked up quite a bit of Tune, and I picked him up over a month ago just for this. And the only format in which I'm rostering him, I believe, is best ball format. But I've been saying it for how many months, Jay? How many months on this show have I been saying I don't believe Kyler Murray's playing? I just don't think they're going to do it. I believe that Arizona, they have embraced the idea of the tank. They are sitting on potentially, just think about this, man. They're sitting on potentially the number 1 and number 2 overall pick in the 24 class.
Yep.
That right now, and let's not even think about offensive linemen or edge rushers or corners or any other defensive impact players. Just offensively, that could be Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, just and no one's taking a tight end that high. But from a fantasy perspective, right, they're sitting on 2 premium picks. And their team is awful. Jay, it's awful. Yeah. I have no clue what Jonathan Gannon is going to do. They got some defensive coordinator that we don't know of. Kyler Murray is injured. You got James Conner at running back. You cut DeAndre Hopkins. You have no receivers. No. Clayton Tune, yes. I think Clayton Tune is... Jay, I'm telling you right now. We're going to see, and I think shout out to Eric Vanek, who was hosting the America's Game podcast, but he had put out some information a while ago in our Discord, Jay, that on average, it's like 50-something quarterbacks that take snaps per NFL season. Clayton, yeah, I know. It's wild. Yeah, it's 32 jobs, but it's 50-something quarterbacks a year that are getting in and playing. I think Stetson Bennett's going to play games. I think Clayton Tune is going to play games. Aiden O'Connell's probably going to get on the field. It doesn't mean any of these guys are going to be the next Brock Purdy, which everyone seems to be looking for. But I don't believe that they're going to – I don't think there's any reason to throw Kyler Murray out there with this team, with trying to revamp this offensive line, Paris Johnson in the first round. I don't see it, man. And it's Colt freaking McCoy. Throw Clayton Tune out there. At least what you can find out with Clayton Tune is the backup quarterback position is valuable. Maybe you've got a guy. He was very efficient at Houston. Maybe you have a guy that can be a serviceable backup. And if you need him to spell Kyler in a game or two, you found your backup quarterback of the future. And if you're playing best ball formats and you get one season and a couple of starts out of Clayton Tune, it's worth it. It's worth it. So, yeah, I'm fine with it. We'll see.
All right, Ray, so let's move forward to some tight end love because we never talk about the tight ends on this show. But in training camp, you get a lot of information about some of these roles and potential things that are going on in this offense. And I think you'll be excited about this one.
Talk to me.
Or what is it? Sean Steichen. Oh, my God.
Get the name out,
there.
right?
Shane
Get
Steichen.
it out.
Colts.
Start over.
Colts head coach.
Get it out.
Jelani Woods, Ray, is going to assume the Dallas Goedert role in Shane Steichen's offense. That sounds pretty notable. I mean, we all like Dallas Goedert. We know what Philly's done for tight ends and what they did last season. Sounds like a pretty good role for a guy who's pretty buried in a lot of ADPs and not really looking like we're going to see a ton from him. But Anthony Richardson maybe throws more to the tight end in his rookie season as well. Potentially, Jelani Woods assuming that role could be a pretty good one. And then I know you're going to love this one because Taysom Hill's in the news again, baby. You know I love me some Taysom Hill. Now he plays tight end. He's great in best ball formats, so you don't got to start him. He apparently is going to have an expanded role as a pass catcher in this New Orleans offense. So now we already got Alvin Kamara potentially suspended. Still waiting for that, surprisingly. Hopefully we get it soon. We obviously love Chris Olave. Michael Thomas is never on the field. We like Jawan Johnson.
Hopefully we get Alvin Kamara. Hopefully we don't get Alvin Kamara suspension.
Hopefully we don't get it, but, we'll see what happens with that. So Taysom Hill potentially expanded role could be a decent target in late underdog drafts in some best ball formats. I know no one wants Taysom Hill, but he was a guy who was a top 12 tight end multiple times last season because he has a great rushing floor. So, I mean, you got to take a look at him. You can't ignore that. And again, if these reports are true and he's going to have an expanded role, he could be even better for fantasy because you just never know how often they're going to use him. And now I think the bigger thing, They don't need him as their backup quarterback. They have Derek Carr, they have Jameis Winston, so he won't have to play quarterback as much. He can be in the offensive room a little bit more with the tight ends, with the receivers. So I think that is an added edge for him. And Ray, just for you, Jake Ferguson, projected to be tight end 1 in Dallas this season. You said you weren't so sure. You thought maybe Schoonmaker could take that job. Obviously, it's still June, so a lot can change. But how would you feel if Jake Ferguson was the tight end 1 for the Cowboys? Because I actually liked Ferguson a lot at Wisconsin. You know, if anyone who watched Jonathan Taylor tape, you see that Ferguson was one of their only playmakers, especially on third down. He was great at converting third downs. So how do you feel about Ferguson going into this season if he is the tight end 1 for Dallas?
I feel good about it. I feel good about the whole tight end room. Dallas is just, they utilize the tight end. They use multiple tight ends. They run a lot of 2 tight end sets. And Jake Ferguson's a good receiver. So I'm excited for him. I think he's going to be a good player for Dallas. And I do think Schoonmaker is going to work his way on the field sooner rather than later. It's going to look a lot like Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz did a couple of years ago in Dallas, and may the best man win out. As far as Taysom Hill, here we go again with this. Here we go. I mean,
you can't ignore him though.
You
like,
can't ignore him.
You don't want to roster. Well, actually, to be fair, I do want to roster him, but you can't ignore him entirely. It's really just to say, like, look, be aware that this could be a possibility and draft accordingly. Right? Because he's going to matter. We don't want him to matter, but he's going to matter. But let's move forward, because the Ravens offense, Ray, I don't know if you knew this. The Ravens have 5 first-round wide receivers on their roster.
Talk to me about this Ravens offense. I like this Ravens offense.
Does this mean anything? I don't know. But 5 first-round wide receivers. Lamar Jackson never has any receivers. People always complain. Now he's got 5 first-round wide receivers. Wow. Amazing. But the bigger story is that Coach Monken is basically giving us the keys to the offense, is what Lamar Jackson said. And Monken said that it's his job to throw the ball and to put up points. And that's it, right? He's very excited, obviously, about what they have. And then the other piece of news that we didn't touch on because it was pretty early in the week last week, but after the show, was Rashad Bateman got an injection in his foot. It was to help the pain management of his Liz Frank injury, because when they put the screws in, take the screws out, sometimes there's some bone spurs in there. So they put the injection in to help with the pain so we can still participate in minicamp, training camp, etc. Shouldn't be a problem going into the season, but we will see. Obviously, Bateman's been hurt for a decent majority of, or decent chunk of his career. So hopefully he can stay healthy, because Lamar's been pumping him up like crazy. Every day it's like Rashad Bateman's number 1. We all think it could be Odell Beckham. I'm kind of leaning like maybe it's a split when it all comes down to it. Maybe Beckham leads early, but I think towards the end we could see some Bateman if ultimately he's healthy, which is a bigger question. And then last but not least, and leading into our number 1 story, J.K. Dobbins, Ray, did not report to minicamp because he wants a new deal.
Well, he's a hold-in. He's there, but he's a hold-in. He wants a new deal. He wants a new deal. I believe he's in the building, but he's not doing any work because he wants a new contract.
Ridiculous. You see all these running backs not getting paid, but J.K. Dobbins thinks, yeah, let's hold out. That'll be good for my contract situation. We also have Saquon Barkley potentially sitting out the year over his contract situation.
Yeah.
Paris Campbell, Ray, taking snaps at running back in Giants minicamp. I mean, we'll see. He was recruited to replace Percy Harvin in that Ohio State offense. People who don't know, he can run the ball. He was pretty good. Josh Jacobs looking for a new deal. Media's hyping up Zamir White. Maybe some Zamir White in year 2. And Ray, actually, I was thinking about this as I was reading the story.
This is just getting worse and worse as you go. Keep going. Keep going. Zamir White, Paris Campbell at running back.
This falls in line with the year 2 Patriots running back type of thing, right?
Gosh.
Year 1, rookie running backs for the Pats get no work, right?
All right, what else
This year,
do we have?
we got James Robinson released, so Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris have life now. Josh Jacobs may sit out, so we got Zamir White life. And Joe Mixon needs to take a pay cut to stay on the Bengals. Is the last running back story. He's getting paid $12.8 million right now, which is at least $2.8 million above the running back market. So the Bengals are expecting him to take a pay cut. But a lot of RB drama.
A lot of RB drama.
It's
it's
the
just
RBs. And we didn't even get into all of it.
There's a lot of RB drama. As far as the J.K. Dobbins situation is concerned, I don't know, there's no way if you're Baltimore, you're paying him. There's no way. Like, what am I paying you for? You haven't even played a full season yet. You're 1 year removed from an ACL. This is year 3. No. What are you doing, JK?
I don't know, bro.
He's got to be just kidding, right? This is just kidding Dobbins. Hey, don't tweet out anything to he will respond to you. He will favorite tweets, and he will call you out. He will quote tweet you and respond. But he's got to be just kidding Dobbins, because there's no way that he thinks he's about to get some extension right now. No, absolutely not. The Giants put that offer back on the. Listen, Jay, if you're a parent out there and your kid's got some talent, I'm not joking, Jay. Let me just ask you, what's the worst Like the lowest paid position in baseball. Like sort of what's the most replaceable position in baseball? Like what would be like a replaceable position in
baseball?
baseball? Yeah,
Probably
like what's,
relief pitcher. There's like thousands of relief pitchers out there.
I mean, there's thousands of running backs out there. Like I'm not paying you. Like it's an awful position when you've got athletes coming out speaking out that the NFLPA needs to step in and get these guys paid. Like it's just an awful position. They just use you and abuse you, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Now, we have been saying on the show for a long time, Jay, that the real litmus test for me for the running back position is going to be what the Indianapolis Colts do with Jonathan Taylor. And there was a report that they are looking to get an extension done with Jonathan Taylor. So he may reset the running back market, or he may take a deal that's a little lower than what McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook or Zeke Elliott got and resets it in a different way, right? Like resets it, but lower, like lower threshold of the reset for Jonathan Taylor. Like, JK, what are you doing, man? New England, sure. Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris. Take your guess.
Ride.
I like Kevin Harris. I like Kevin Harris a lot coming out of South Carolina. He's a big boy.
Who would you pick, though? Because I feel like the guy would be Pierre Strong because he's the guy that projects to have the pass-catching role, even though Ramondre played, I think it was like 70% of snaps last year. But this year, I mean, it will be a little bit different. Those guys are obviously experienced. But if I was picking a guy, it would probably be Pierre Strong just because Kevin Harris profiles as the two-down grinder behind Ramondre, where maybe Pierre Strong could carve out a role outside of what Ramondre already does.
Sure. I mean, you know, we do this all the time. And I'll say this, trying to predict which Patriots backup running back is going to get the volume is a fruitless exercise because every year, there's no way they're going to actually give Rex Burkhead the ball. No way. And then it's just Rex Burkhead, right? So I literally have no clue, Jay. It's Ramondre the Rhino Stevenson. That's all I want.
Yep.
Just give me Ramondre. Let me ride with him and let me get out of those New England trenches because it's disgusting over there in New England. And then was there anybody else I didn't touch on? We talked a little Taysom Hill. Patriots offense.
What do you
Joe
think
Mixon.
the Bengals do? Because the Bengals offense is
Mixon's
set,
going
man.
back. Mixon's going back, man.
He should, but is he going to? Will he take that pay cut?
No.
I don't know if he will.
I don't know, man.
He looks so washed. Shouldn't he just say no and
Does he look-
and just get cut?
And do what? Get cut and go what? Go do what? He's not going to be a starter anywhere else. He needs to stay right there. Take the cut, continue to play, be the guy in Cincinnati. Maybe you can earn yourself a 1-year window or leash somewhere else. But you cut Joe Mixon and you bring him in, he's going to get touches, but where's he go where he just he just needs to stay in Cincinnati. I think he's going
to go to Dallas, right? He go to Minnesota.
And be
like,
what?
There's still jobs available.
And be
he's just
what?
a grinder. He's a
be
grinder.
the grinder to Tony Pollard. I wouldn't pay him. Just ride with Malik Davis. If I'm Dallas, I'm not paying Mixon. I'm not paying him. That's the whole point. Is I'm not paying these running backs. That's the bigger point. So we'll see how all of this stuff plays out, Jay. But we got to get into the block one of the show, the big block, and this is sort of what the thumbnail was over, and it's players under the pressure cooker for 2023. And yes, that's the Undertaker. It is somebody's going down from here. This is the pressure cooker. So there was an article that dropped on NFL.com 5 days ago by Nick Shook. So shout out to Nick Shook. And the title of this article is Make or Break Candidates, Players at a Crossroads Entering the 2023 Season. And I thought this would be a fun sort of list to go through, Jay, and figure out if we agree or disagree with these players that are supposedly under the pressure cooker here in 2023. So let's kick it off and start with the QB position, Jay. And we have on the top of this article, Ryan Tannehill being under pressure, one of the top 12 players in the pressure cooker for the 2023 season. We know that they tried to draft Malik Willis as potential replacement and quarterback of the future last year. That didn't work out. They took Will Levis this year in the second round, but you've got Ryan Tannehill still hanging in there, right? Almost 35 years old. And I think the big question that a lot of fantasy gamers have with Ryan Tannehill is how much time you got left with him, right? You know, that's what you're thinking about. He's the starter today, but he's one of those guys that could be a backup tomorrow, or he could start another year or two, Jay. When you look at his efficiency since taking over the job from Marcus Mariota a couple of years ago, Ryan Tannehill, on much less volume, has been one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the NFL during his time as the starter in Tennessee. You look at what the Titans have done this offseason. They didn't do a lot to really surround him with weapons. They brought DeAndre Hopkins in, but did you hear the report that they flew him out on Southwest? Is that real? They put him on a Southwest flight?
We saw. I think that was on the McAfee show, right?
Man.
We put him on a Southwest flight. It's like probably not good.
Man, I don't. You go to check in that Southwest, and you always get B29. You always get the B section, and you're fucking sitting in the middle, little. I'm just telling you, I'm at a stage in life, Jay. I tell my wife, either put me in first class or pay for extra leg room. I'm not sitting in the middle. I can't sit in economy, man. Dude, I flew back from Hawaii, Jay, and I was in the middle economy, and it was two guys next to me, and we're just, we're sleeping on each other and just rubbing arms. I mean, just so close. I could feel your breath on me. It's just I gotta be first class or I gotta be premium seats, man. But I don't know, where was I going with this? I was talking
we were talking about DeAndre Hopkins getting flown out on Southwest.
That's what it was.
Tangent
Yes.
about
Ryan
how
Tannehill.
you only fly first class GQ. I like it though. Rashida probably doesn't like it too much, but
she loves it because she's bougier than me. Ryan Tannehill, Jay, what do you think about him this year in 2023? Do you think there's a chance? And all the reports is Will Levis did not look good at OTAs, and he shouldn't, right? He's
Shocking,
a rookie.
yeah.
Shocking. He's a rookie. Ryan Tannehill, 1 year bet. Are you willing to hinge? Let's just say you wanted to go down and dirty at quarterback, and you're like, you know what? We're in this new auction. I'm not spending big dollars on a quarterback. I'm going to best ball dart this thing with quarterbacks. You think he gets through the season? Does Ryan Tannehill make it through the entire season as the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans? And if not, what happens to him next year?
So I think the interesting conversation is, does he make it through the season? First question. I'm going to say absolutely. If people who don't understand the AFC South and the NFC South play each other, so they have like the easiest strength of schedule by a mile in the NFL. So with that being said already, right off the rip, Tennessee has a very easy schedule. They don't not play too many tough games. So they should, in theory, at least be competitive enough to not have a terrible record. Now we project them to have probably a top 10 pick because all those teams are awful. But I think Ryan Tannehill, if healthy, makes it through the season. He's not going to get benched because of poor play. I think he'll only get benched if for some reason they're really bad, but I don't expect that with their schedule. So then you talk about beyond this season. Tannehill's going to be 25 or 35. And at that point, I'm like, maybe he could find another job because honestly, you look at the backup quarterbacks in the quarterback market right now, there aren't a lot of guys that I would prefer over Ryan Tannehill. We will talk about.
So you're pretty pro Tannehill, man.
I mean, you look at what he's had, right? When he has a good offensive line, he's pretty good.
Jay, the chat is pretty pro Tannehill. El Wood said he's never had weapons. Brock said 24 Tannehill is a Falcon. Todd said the passing game collapses with. That's the thing. Like, this is not just Ray, just his opinion, right? Their data shows that Ryan Tannehill is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. He just doesn't throw it as much as others because you got Derrick Henry and you've got a coach that wants to establish it. But the more that I think about this, man, like
35, he should get another contract. It's just about looking at who's available. Do I want Baker Mayfield? Do I want Sam Darnold? Jordan Love obviously is now a starter on Green Bay because Aaron Rodgers left. No one's going after Zach Wilson. I don't even think anyone would prefer Jimmy Garoppolo over Tannehill, right? I think Tannehill is a guy that if he becomes available, which I think he could be after this season, you're looking at, Arthur Smith, who previously coached him, had a lot of success with him. Bring him to Atlanta, all of a sudden, they have a fortified offensive line. They have tons of cap space. They can pay him. And maybe even Tannehill would be willing to take a bit of a pay cut to go to Atlanta and build a team around him because he already had success with Arthur Smith. I just think, you look at who could be available next season, and Tannehill has had nothing but Derrick Henry. He's had Derrick Henry, and that's basically it.
Well,
they had AJ Brown, and they were great.
Bit.
And they were great with AJ Brown, but you need to have more to really win. And that team still went to an AFC championship game because they have a great defense and Tannehill was great. So I think he's a good player that will get another contract. So I wouldn't be all out on Tannehill yet.
Okay.
Because if he gets a new contract next year, you'd probably be pretty happy with that.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next player on this list. And it's Mr. You Like That.
Is hot.
That's Mr. You Like That himself, Captain Kirk Cousins, Jay. Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings, they have, I believe, closed negotiations. I don't want to.
I think Kirk said that, right?
Yeah,
he said
Kirk
that he's going to wait until next March.
Yep,
And that
so
basically all contract talks have been closed off.
And he will be a free agent, so he will be on the market. I believe Kirk Cousins will be 34 years old, so he's right there, I believe, with Ryan Tannehill. Don't quote me on that, but I think he's 34 years old.
He's going to be 35.
He's going to be 35, so same age as Ryan Tannehill. And he gets beat up, but Kirk Cousins is always available. He's always available.
He is, yeah.
We know primetime Kirk is a little up and down, but he's helped his team move forward since assuming the role as the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. This is another one, Jay, that I think even when he does not return to Minnesota, if they can't work something out, he's another one of those guys that will get another 1-year deal, 2-year deal somewhere else to be the starting quarterback. So I'm not as concerned about I don't want to be pot calling the kettle black, hypocritical that Tannehill's days are numbered, but Kirk Cousins they're the same age. I mean, I think the real question, Jay, is 35 old for the quarterback position? Is 35 old? Because it's tough. You think about different positions. Wide receiver, they hit 30, they're old. Running back, they hit 23 years old and they're old. But quarterback, what's the cliff? What's the cutoff? Is it Aaron Rodgers who's approaching 40? I mean, I don't know. But what I do know is Cousins is going to be a starter regardless of where he's playing at next year.
Yeah, so I mean, you talk about the cliff for quarterbacks. I think it's literally just how teams are feeling about that player any given season, right? Some seasons they're kind of in on the older guys, and some they're kind of like, I don't know. You look at Matt Ryan, he wasn't cooked, and then he went to Indy, and all of a sudden he's the worst quarterback in football. Right. So I think, situation matters and things can change. And he wasn't great in his final season, but he was a lot worse in Indy. You look at Kirk Cousins, like you mentioned, he's missed one game since 2015. And he started
crazy.
Full-time starter every year, 4,000 yards the past 3 seasons, almost 30 touchdowns every year, because last year he didn't hit 30. But I mean, he's been great. The issue for him, he's like a reverse Tannehill. He throws a ton, and he's not that efficient because he throws so much, right? And so you look at a Cousins, and you look at a Tannehill, and Ray, I have to ask you the question, if you're an NFL GM, who do you want as your quarterback? Because both these guys could be available. And if we're being honest, the more accomplished quarterback in some respect is Ryan Tannehill, because he did take his team to an AFC Championship game. And Kirk Cousins has barely made it out of the first. I think he's won one playoff game. And so he made it out of the wild card round, but he's never made it out of the divisional round. But I'm just, again, you don't want to build around Tannehill.
You're just asking the question. You're just asking the question, Tannehill or Cousins, if you're the GM.
Yeah.
I think 99% of people would just say Kirk Cousins because he does have the gaudy numbers. He has.
Yeah.
He's got Justin Jefferson at his disposal. But I think you put forth a really good case, because if you put their efficiency metrics up against one another, I'm pretty sure Tannehill over the past 3-4 years has been a more efficient thrower of the football than Kirk Cousins. Ultimately, I think Kirk lands a job after the season, whether he's in Minnesota or not. So let's move on to another position on this list, and let's talk about the wide receiver and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas under the pressure cooker. Let's get this ad. Why are these ads popping up? On the season, right? You got I don't know when the last time MT's actually been usable for us in fantasy. No damn
3
clue.
years. 3 years.
And it literally feels like Michael Thomas has played like a couple of years of football, and he's like 30 years old, and it feels like he's only played a couple of years. I don't know how many. He's given us some elite seasons, but MT and the ankle or whatever's been going on with him, he's been out for years.
Yep. Yeah, so he's only played 10 games in his last 3 seasons.
That's
But the last full
insane.
season he played was his 150 reception, 1,700-yard season. So, again, we know what the ceiling looks like for Michael Thomas. Now, it's not going to be the same ceiling today as it was in 2019 when he broke the record. But, I mean, it's difficult to be out on Thomas because even when he played last year, he was still pretty decent. He had 171 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 16 receptions in 3 games last year. And one of those games he got hurt. So you look at that and you're saying, it's not great, but if he can be a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, even a wide receiver 4 at times, a guy in best ball you can start because he probably has pretty good touchdown upside. He scored a touchdown every game last season. So you look at that and you say with Chris Olave, with Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, now they have Derek Carr, and they've been working together. Michael Thomas is going to OTAs, and Nick Underhill, people who don't follow the Saints really at all, follow Nick Underhill. Dude is as tapped in as any insider in the NFL. And he even admitted, he's like, I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm saying. I don't want to be in, but Michael Thomas is back and he's looking good. And so that's
really,
kind of
I haven't heard any reports. I haven't heard any reports out of the MT camp.
Underhill was talking about how he was surprised that Thomas was at minicamp and at OTAs and stuff working with Derek Carr, and he was looking better than expected. And so it's kind of like, we don't want to be in on MT because he's never available, but the cost is not so high that you can't be in. So I think for me, you talk about pressure cooker, the big thing for him is his contract. He's getting paid like $20 million a year and he's doing nothing. Now they restructured his deal and now he's a little bit cheaper, but he still has to produce. And you think about what could Michael Thomas be outside of New Orleans? And he legitimately may not even be in the league. Like, I don't know what team is going to sign him because he's probably going to ask for $10 million, right? He's going to ask for $10 million. Do you want to pay Michael Thomas $10 million after another up and down season with the Saints again this year? And he will be 30 years old because he's 30 years old right now. So he'll be going into his year 31 season with all these injuries and poor production after 2019.
All right. So play this out for me. Michael Thomas and Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson and Alvin Kamara on the field. They're all out there for the New Orleans Saints.
Damn,
is
Taysom
MT
Hill disrespect.
is MT come on, man. Is MT empty? Is MT empty or is MT empty with Chris Olave? Is he empty or empty with Chris Olave? Which one?
I think he would be MT like Michael Thomas because, I told you this when they drafted Olave. I think this turns Olave into the deep threat. And if you recall, Olave was leading the league in air yards by a mile to start the season when Michael Thomas was in the lineup because Michael Thomas was assuming that intermediate role and you had Olave going deep over the top and Jameis was just bombing it to him every single play. So not to say that he's going to be this fantasy stud, but he can be a guy who can still operate in the intermediate and short area, get open and convert and keep the chains moving. We have Shaheed for deep balls. Obviously, Olave will do his thing outside. I think he will be pretty good. The question for me isn't whether Michael Thomas is good. It's whether he's going to be healthy. And I think we say that about a lot of guys, but I think that Michael Thomas is a perfect case of that for sure.
Oh, man. When he's on the field, he's great. He just gobbles up targets, man. He gobbles up targets. He is good. He wins his routes. When he's on the field, it's just scary betting on that. But I do believe in the right format, he is well worth the risk. And is he in that pressure cooker this year? Jay, I kind of disagree with you because even if he's not on the Saints, somebody will pay him to bring him in. I mean, I'm looking. Randall Cobb got a deal, right? And I understand.
Because of Aaron Rodgers.
I get it, right? I'm not. But Randall Cobb, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Michael Thomas will find work in the NFL because he did have 150 receptions and was one of the most dominant receivers in the league, even if it was 11 years ago. So MT, I'm not putting him in the pressure cooker. I'm very hopeful for him. And I hope he plays because I like watching Michael Thomas play. He's a great receiver, so let's hope he's back on the field. Let's move on to the next player on this list and talk about Baker Mayfield. Number one overall pick a couple of years ago. All we're seeing right now in the on the Twitter streets is Tampa Bay quarterbacks airmailing passes to big tight ends. Jay, this is it for Mayfield, right? If he fails, gets replaced, goes out there and stinks it up, this is it, right? I mean, he had his time in Cleveland. He had a little stint in L.A. He's getting first crack at this job in Tampa Bay. But if this doesn't work out, it's over, right? It is a wrap.
Yeah, he was the worst passer of the football when he was on the Rams last season. Like literally dead last. In every single efficiency metric, he was at the absolute bottom. The only player lower than him was Malik Willis. But Malik Willis didn't qualify for enough pass attempts. But yeah, what's up, Damian?
DP in the building. What's up, DP?
But yeah, Baker,
shout out to Damian Parson. Does good work, man. He's already deep into the 24 class. And we're going to talk. DP out there. DP is out there pumping Drake May, baby. I'm derailing the show. Ooh. He is telling people, do not forget about Drake May. Everybody putting Caleb as the next better version of Patrick Mahomes, and Drake May's right there. So we're going to get DP on here, and we're going to argue it out and talk it through later on. But Jay, Baker's awful. This has got to be his last. He's bad. He is
So
not
Ray,
good.
the question for you, because this is, we've taken this to a bit of a fantasy angle at times. Would you invest in Baker Mayfield at all?
No.
At all. And do you
What
think
are
he
you
can win the
talking
job?
about? No.
Low
Yes.
cost. Low
yes,
cost.
he can win. Yes, he
right?
can win. Yes, he.
Do you think he can
if
win the
can't-
job?
If he can't beat out Kyle Trask, come on, man. Yes, he should be able to win the job. Yes.
I mean, we talk about
Absolutely.
Clayton Tune getting a shot. At some point, they got to give Trask a shot. So maybe he can't beat out Trask. And then right? He's
Here
done.
it is. Here's the line.
Right?
Here's the line right here. Mayfield still has that moxie. He's got that moxie.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Oh boy, that moxie. You gotta have that moxie. He's still got that. Listen, man.
Ridiculous, man.
Yes, he is under the pressure cooker, and I'm looking at this Tampa Bay team. How bad? Some people think they could be in race for the number 1 overall pick. I don't think they're that bad. I don't believe that they're that bad to be number 1, number 2 overall.
If Baker's really bad, then what does Mike Evans and Chris Godwin mean, right? We love them. They're great talents.
know.
They can
I
elevate
know.
an offense.
I know.
But if he's that bad, I don't know, man. Like, their running game is still awful. Their offensive line still isn't very good. Doesn't seem like they're trying to really win. They're only trying to win, I think, because they have Evans and Godwin. But outside of that, if they didn't have those guys or they
They're not
traded them,
trying to win anything. Who's the head coach? Is Todd Bowles still there?
Todd Bowles, yeah, man. Todd Bowles still, and you want to talk about under the pressure cooker? If he loses 11 games this year, he's fired.
Man, I hate to do it
100%
for
he's
my. I
fired.
hate to do it for my brother on Juneteenth, but if that Joker goes out there and loses like 6 or 7, he probably needs to go. I hate to do it on Juneteenth, but my brother, he may have to go because it's not looking good in Tampa Bay. I mean, it just again,
so
Jay,
bad, man. They got nothing.
This is not the topic for today, but it really the thing that just continues to go through my mind is Bill Belichick a semi-fraud? Like, how
No
good was Tom
way.
Brady? How good was Tom Brady? Jay, to carry New England, like when you really, dude, I'm not even being funny, man. When you think about New England, outside of a couple of years, they really didn't have anybody. No superstars. Never. White slot receivers, some tight ends, a damn good tight end, a second rounder, but a damn good
Hall
one.
of Famer.
Tom Brady. And they're throwing out Deion Branch, David Patton, Troy Brown, Taekwon Underwood, name them, Chad Ochocinco. Outside of a couple of years, it was
They brought
Tom
in them
Brady
all.
land,
Brandon
right?
Marshall was there.
Brandon,
everyone.
anybody. Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks was there for a
Name
year.
them.
I think
Calvin
Jericho
Johnson.
Cotchery might have went there.
Jerry
for a year.
Rice
Like,
played there. Tim Brown. They all played there. And then he leaves and he goes to Tampa Bay and takes that same team. They win a Super Bowl year 1. Just makes you think. I'm just asking, man.
I mean, Ray, you keep saying it. The state of the Patriots post Tom Brady is one of the worst run franchises in football at times, it seems. That defense is phenomenal, and it's great
the
every
defense
year.
is phenomenal.
But
Defense is phenomenal.
On the offensive side, for a coach who is known for all these things, and even with Josh McDaniels at times, they still looked awful. And we don't really know how we feel about Josh McDaniels as a head coach yet. But as an OC, probably good enough, right? But outside of now, you get Josh McDaniels gone, and this year they bring in Bill O'Brien. If Bill O'Brien isn't even like okay offensively, you have to look at Bill and say, "Bro, what are you doing?" Like
You already
have this
look
great
at-
defense.
What
It's
he
crazy.
did last year, you're already saying, bro, what are you doing? But Mayfield's got that moxie. No, he's awful.
Yeah, he does.
Yes, this is his final stop. And if he does well, let's not just be negative. If he does well, is he a starter moving forward? If he plays well and he's got Tampa Bay and they win the NFC South,
You know they have the worst odds to win the South, right? The
all right,
worst.
let's move on. All right, let's
Even
move
below
on.
the Panthers. No
All right, let's
chance.
move on.
No shot.
Derrick Henry,
0%.
next under the pressure cooker. Derrick Henry, interesting. Derrick Henry, and I think it says that the last line of this says the Titans have indisputably extracted the most from Henry in his time in Tennessee. That might be nearing its end, even if he produces another 1,500-yard season. Turns 30 in January. Small decline in his performance, 349 carries. The third time he's done that in his career, which is insane, but they're already fearing the dreaded 30-year wall for Derrick Henry, Jay. So
Do you know what other wall he's going to hit, Ray?
what's that?
200 carries in the NFL. is what he's going to pass this season. He only needs
2,000?
2,000. Yeah, 2,000 carries in the NFL. So the dreaded 2,000 wall too, right? And not to mention all the carries he had at Alabama, right? Where he's at running the
million.
ball 400 times a season.
What about
Yeah.
in high school? Remember those high school stats where they're giving the ball 68 times in a game?
Well, when you're playing against those undersized Florida boys,
those
yeah,
scrappy
it's
kids.
not quite the same, not quite the wear and tear of Alabama in the NFL. But yeah, 300 carry seasons in 4 years. The only year he didn't was when he only played half a season. He had 200 carries in that season and was RB10 on the year. For those who don't remember, that would have been his best season by far. But yeah, you look at Ryan Tannehill kind of on the way out. I think that someone will give Henry a job, but you look at the RB market now, who's trying to pay a running back who, while great, is 30 years old and has 2,000 carries in the NFL? And if you're Derrick Henry, why do you want to be subjected to, that market when who's going to pay you more than $5 million a season? And you're still probably going to carry the ball as much as you can handle like you did in the past.
He's different though, man. I do think that he is one that even when Tennessee releases him or they trade him, that there will be a market for Derrick Henry. He's just, it defies everything that we've talked about from a logical standpoint, from an analytical standpoint. It seems like a suboptimal bet. But if I'm going to make that bet for a running back that can continue to pound the ball and do what we need him to do, to be a 60%er, to be a grinder, to be an early down hammer, Derrick Henry's the one that I'm going to bet on. I'm going to bet on 6'3", 250 that can still pull away from defenders. He doesn't look bad to me when I'm watching him play, Jay. So, Evan put in the chat, Tennessee's offensive line was one of the worst in the NFL. I think they averaged around 0.9 yards before contact for Derrick Henry. Is he in his talent? And this is my thing with this list. This is different than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's under the pressure cooker because he ain't good, right? Yeah. Derrick Henry's under the pressure cooker, not because he's not good, but because he plays the worst position that you can play in football, and he's at the age apex. Pressure, no. Henry leaves Tennessee. I think there'll be a long list of NFL teams that deploy that vie for his services. I'm not concerned with it. Derrick Henry's a phenomenal running back, and honestly, Jay, he's just the type of player that if you have him in Dynasty, he's just worth more on your team than he will ever be on the market. Nobody's going to give you what he really deserves and should be given in the trade market. So I'm just going to Titanic ride him to the bottom of the ocean, man. I'm just going to ride him to the bottom of the ocean.
You're praying he gives you that 2016 LeGarrette Blount season, 299 carries, 1,100 yards, and 18 touchdowns on the Pats.
Why can't he?
He played till he was 32.
Why
he played
can't he?
in Philly the year after that, then Detroit. So I think Henry could see a similar career arc and maybe even a little bit higher peaks in the later years if he does play that long. But we'll see how long he wants to play. Obviously, he's been playing football for a long time, and running back is tough, man. It's tough.
It's tough. All right, Jay. Let's move on to the next player on this list. Oh, boy. Here we go. Oh, boy. Dak Prescott. Old Dakota. Rain Dakota Prescott. Next on the list as a player make or break season for Dak Prescott. And yesterday, Jay, I was on the Bleacher Report stream. Shout out to my other employer, Bleacher Report, and we were doing a little Cowboys under the radar players on the depth chart to talk about. And as you look through this Dallas roster, and it's not even me being a homer, man, this team is good. This is a good team. They should have a top 3 defense in the NFL. Offensively, you still have a lot of good pieces in play. Their offensive line is healthy right now. That's always a question mark. You bring in a Brandon Cooks. You add a Stephon Gilmore. You draft a Mozzie Smith to plug up the middle and solidify that run defense. You bring back all your secondary defenders. You've got Tyron Smith back. I mean, this team should be ready to go. The quarterback.
That's what we're talking about here.
We're not talking about
defense right now.
The quarterback, Dak Prescott. And while he is clearly one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, Jay.
Above average, for sure.
I asked a question on one of the YouTube shorts that I put out last week about Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, truck versus the trailer. Is Dak Prescott the truck or is he the trailer? And I think there was a point of time where I thought Dak was the truck. I thought that Dak could pull the rest of the team. Just give him pieces and he can will him the victory. He could pull the rest of the team. And as time has gone on, Jay, and I look at what made Dallas successful when they were successful, and I think Dak is the trailer. I really do. I believe that he is not one of the quarterbacks that's going to be the floor raiser. I think he can help players, but he's not the floor raiser. He is the trailer. And the rest of the team, a.k.a. the defense, a.k.a. the running game, that's the truck. Is Dak under pressure this year?
I think he's under a lot of pressure.
I think he's under
for every
pressure.
reason you just mentioned.
I think he is under pressure, but under pressure from the sense that I think people think that he's not going to be a starting quarterback. Whether it's in Dallas, which it's going to be, in my opinion. Like, I know a lot of people want to say they can move on, but if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan and you lived through the Quincy Carter, Drew Henson, Chad Hutchinson, Vinny Testaverde days, you don't want to do this again. Dallas has been spoiled. They have been spoiled because, Jay, the Dallas Cowboys have not had to spend, and we almost did with Johnny Manziel and Paxton Lynch, but a first-round pick on a quarterback in over a decade.
Yeah.
Tony Romo, UDFA. Dak Prescott, fourth-round pick. So they've been spoiled with finding guys later on that ended up being very good. Even if it's not on Dallas, I'll just say even if it's not on Dallas, he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but there's definitely a lot of pressure on Dak this season with this defense and the amount of money that has not been paid out to players, a.k.a. Micah Parsons. Did you see over here, the NFL execs and coaches ran a list. The article is right here on NFL.com of the top 10 non-quarterback building blocks for an NFL franchise. You know who number one was?
It was Micah, really.
Micah Parsons
he's
over Nick
disgusting,
Bosa,
so.
over Sauce Gardner, over Justin Jefferson, over Jamar Chase. NFL execs and coaches said Micah Parsons would be their number one non-quarterback franchise building block in the NFL. You need to get it done, Dallas. And to be quite honest, the way that the AFC is set up, Jay, the NFC, Philly is the head, right? They
should be number 3. Number 3 is ripe for the picking for Dallas.
Or even
you have the Eagles and San Fran. You know, we got to give credit to San Fran. They're really good.
I'm putting Dallas ahead of San Fran right now.
I'm putting Dallas ahead of San Fran right now. The team, right?
I'm putting Dallas ahead of San. Jay, they don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback.
Need a quarterback. They've never had a quarterback. We've seen them do it with no quarterback for years, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. Like, these are nobodies. Jimmy Garoppolo is basically not a starting quarterback, not on San Francisco. But he gets it done on again, you want to talk about team construction? I love what Dallas did. Their defense should be phenomenal. But San Fran has constructed one of the best teams we've ever seen because they don't have a quarterback and they are fourth in Super Bowl odds.
Jay, they don't have a quarterback, man.
But they beat Dallas. Purdy beat them last year. And I think Dallas is way better because Gilmore changes everything for that defense. He changes everything.
It's not
if he's
just
as good as he was in Indy.
It's Gilmore. It's getting Micah Parsons not playing Mike linebacker, putting him on the edge, right? It's having Tony Pollard and not wasting carries on Zeke. It's having a competent number 2 next to C. Who was the number 2 receiver next to CD last year? Who was it? They pulled T.Y. Hilton.
Don't know.
T.Y. Hilton was chilling on his couch like me, and they brought him in, and he immediately gets elevated to the number 2 receiver role. I mean, this team, it's not just that San Francisco doesn't have a quarterback. They lost D'Amico Ryans. They lost D'Amico. San Francisco's
we'll see, but they said the same thing about Saleh too, right? They lost Saleh. They were like, we'll see about the defense. They brought in D'Amico and things were fine. So, again, I believe that they will have a good defense again.
Let me ask you this. You really think that Brock can go out there and beat Dallas this year? That Brock Purdy can go out there and beat Dallas?
Yeah, he already beat them. So why can't he do it again? That's where I'm surprised that you're all like, I get you. This is the race. If you want to say that's the race for 2, I'm fine with it. But for me, it's clearly the Eagles, then San Fran, then Dallas. But Dallas has no excuses beyond 3. And I think that's why there's tons of pressure on Dak. But you look at the offense, and yeah, we like Tony Pollard, but we also know that he's not a 300 carry guy.
He doesn't need to be that.
Carries, he doesn't need to be, but they have to find someone who's still good enough.
They got Malik Davis can do it. Ronald Jones can absorb carries. Like, that's all you need them to do. You're not asking them to be Zeke. You're just asking them to absorb carries. Just take some pressure.
And then you need Dak to be good. even though he had the highest interception rate of the year last year. He was
Well, they're
over
not going to throw
3%.
as much. They're not going to throw as much under Brian Schottenheimer. They lost Kellen Moore, and that's Kellen. This is why Justin Herbert and things are looking good. You hear Keenan Allen and them saying they're pushing the ball. That's not Dak. Dak is a trailer. He's a big, fancy, nice trailer, but he's a trailer, right? Get the ball out quick, run the ball.
Yeah.
Is Dak under pressure this year? Yes. Is Dak on
Hell
the verge?
yes.
Is Dak on the verge of losing his starting job in the NFL? Hell no. No way.
But on
Not a-
Dallas, though, it seems like it's so
not-
your perspective, right? Because it seems like the fan base is kind of sick of Dak. Like if he does what he did last year and really sinks it up down the stretch, he has a $60 million cap hit next year.
He's not
and I
going
still don't
anywhere.
know if he's staying on the roster.
Come on, dude.
I'm not saying he should be moved because, to your point, there is not better out there. We've talked about
There's
Tannehill
not.
and Cousins and Dak, but Dallas in a weird spot where it's like, okay, are we going to pay this guy again? Right? Because he's only 30. He's not super old or anything. They could have him for multiple
Yes,
years.
they're gonna pay him
But
again.
if they know that he's not the guy, you're in a tough spot. Because it's the
Dak-
same with Minnesota.
if
Minnesota
Dallas
knows that
lets-
Kirk isn't the guy, and they don't
If
want to pay him.
Dallas lets Dak go, there will be dozens of teams lined up to
100%.
try to get him. To get him.
100%.
So,
100% there will be.
all right, let's talk about the next player on the list, Russell Wilson.
Lean and
And
mean Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson's looking good, man. Russell Wilson's looking lean. He's training. He gets one of the best head coaches in NFL history. It's going to be a revamped offense. There was a tweet, and I'm trying to think of who put it out. I don't know if it was Hayden Winks, Ian, or Dwayne McFarland. It was one of those guys. But it talked about the New Orleans Saints approach in 2019. It was like from 2019 to whenever Sean Payton left. They were one of the slowest paced teams in the NFL. They don't play fast. With Drew Brees, with Michael Thomas, with Alvin Kamara, they were slow in pace of play, Jay, and they ran the ball a lot. They controlled it. I'm looking at this Denver team, and defensively, they've got a very good team. I think they lost some important pieces, but hopefully, offensively and having the new coach, bringing in, I believe, who's their defensive coordinator? It's not, I think it's Steve Wilks or Vance Joseph. One of those guys. I think it's Steve Wilks is the defensive coordinator they brought in to help run that job after Vic Fangio left. Russ is definitely under pressure, Jay. He is in the pressure cooker. And unfortunately for Russell Wilson, who's the D coordinator?
It's Evero.
It's Evero. Okay, it's Evero. Sorry about that. Evero.
No, you're good.
One of the reasons why is what they had to do to give up to get him, right?
Yeah.
Everything that they had to do to give up to get Russell Wilson. And you're playing in the division with Mahomes and Herbert, which is not good. It's just... Again, it's like playing in the Western Conference in the NBA. It's just brutal, right? It's just murderer's row in that AFC West division. But he was awful with Nathaniel Hackett, literally one of the worst years of his career. You get Sean Payton, what are Russell Wilson's excuses? And you're talking about Dak Prescott potentially not being on Dallas. Talk to me about Russell Wilson. What happens if he plays like shit this year?
I mean, that's the funniest part about it, right? Is I think he's blessed that Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach last year because for everything he wasn't, and we all watched him melt down and not call a timeout on Monday night, he was awful. But this year, it's not Russell Wilson's team. It's Sean Payton's team. And that's been
is
very
Sean
clear
Payton's
from the
team.
beginning. And Sean Payton is not taking any shit. And we heard this from a lot of people at the Senior Bowl when we were talking to guys that were there. A lot of the Saints staffers were saying, Sean Payton's going to work Russ. He's going to make it hard for him, and he's going to have to work. And it's going to be his team. And we heard about early in the offseason, Russ doesn't have his trainers at the facilities, doesn't have his random coaches that he hires. None of those guys are allowed. It's Sean Payton, and we'll have to figure it out. But what do they do with him if he stinks? I don't know. Because they brought him in to be the savior of this franchise and take them to new heights, and he was awful last year. I think that Sean can do great things with them, because if you look around across the NFL and you say, who's the quarterback that probably compares to Drew Brees the most? It's Russell Wilson. Right? Like you look at what Russell Wilson did and how the kind of success he had and the trajectory he was on. People thought that he was that kind of next up Drew Brees S-type quarterback with a shorter frame that's mobile, that can move the ball. I think that Russ is a great quarterback, but I don't know if he's going to be the guy that can take this team to new heights in the AFC. And so he's under a ton of pressure because, one, he was bad. It's no longer his team. And I just, at the end of the day, Ray, how does he even win games to where he's not on the hot seat? Like, what would be success for Russell Wilson? Because imagine them even making the playoffs It feels like it'd be impossible for them to climb that mountain and make the playoffs with all the good teams in the AFC. So the pressure's on Russ because he has to be good, but good may not be good enough for Russell Wilson.
Well, I'm going to pull up the Broncos schedule, Jay. Let's pull up the Denver Broncos schedule and just let's see. All right, let's see Broncos schedule. Let's pull up the schedule, Jay, and let's predict these the wins losses for the Denver Broncos. We're going to do that right now because I'm very much like you. I don't know, my friend. So let's pull this up. Let's go through it. Let's move us out of the way over here. Week 1 versus the Raiders. Win-loss.
It's home or road? That's at home, right? Yeah, at home they'll win.
At home versus Washington. Week 2.
They should win that game at home.
That's 2 wins. At Miami.
Hell no.
All right. At Chicago.
I think that game could be tough,
They
but
win.
I think they probably win.
They win. They're 3-1 right now. It's looking good. At home versus the Jets.
They're going to lose that game.
All right. 3-2. At Kansas City.
Yeah, they're losing that game too.
3-3. Home versus the Packers.
They should probably win that game.
I say they lose. 3-4.
Okay.
Kansas City. Loss. 3-5.
Buffalo, loss.
3-6. Minnesota.
I'm going to say they lose that game.
3-7. Cleveland at home.
I'm going to say they lose that game too.
3-8.
Are they beating Cleveland?
3-8. No, they're not beating Cleveland. 3-8. At Houston. 4-8.
Yep.
At the Chargers. 4-9. They lose.
Yep. Lions.
At
on the
Detroit.
road. Loss.
4-10.
Pats.
New England at home.
They should win that game.
Loss. 4-11. At home versus the Chargers. Give them the split. 5-11.
They'll split the Chargers, I think.
5-11. At Vegas.
Raiders
week 18.
on the road.
Disappointed.
fucking lose
Jared
that game.
Jared Stidham revenge game. He's playing week 18. They win. They finish the season 5 and 12? 5 and 12?
5 and 12.
5 and
Maybe
12?
6 and 11. Maybe. It's tough, man. They've got a tough schedule. There's
Yeah.
no way.
All right.
No way.
So the next player on the list is Chase Young, but we're here mainly fantasy. Chase Young, phenomenal talent, tore his knee up. We're not going to spend any time talking about him. I still think there's a lot of talent left, and I for one, am not personally giving up on Chase Young. I would love to see. Hell, bring him to Dallas. We'll take him as a defensive
I was going to
end.
say, he's going to end up in San Fran on a little rehabilitation contract to get his career back up. He'll be a rotational rusher for them and just fly off the edge.
Yeah, I'm still in on Chase Young. So next player, especially from a fantasy perspective, we're going to talk about. We got 2 running backs up here. We got Josh Jacobs and then A.J. Dillon. So let's start with Josh Jacobs, who led the NFL in rushing last year with over 1,600 after their head coach decided to play him in the fourth quarter. Remember when Josh Jacobs was playing in the fourth quarter of preseason game 1? They're giving him carries,
Doom
and it was
and gloom.
It was looking bad. And Josh Jacobs went out there and put on a season of a lifetime. Smashed, was an absolute difference maker from a WAR perspective for fantasy. He was phenomenal for the NFL. Again, led the league in rushing, played through injury, never practiced, was always on the injury report, and somehow just magically showed up for the game. And I think the Raiders are going to try to pound him in the ground this year. And Jacobs, those injuries that he fought through last year,
He ain't doing that this year.
I don't know
Not
if
on
he's
the
going to
tag.
do it this year on the tag. I am terrified. If you roster Josh Jacobs, man, I am just terrified that by the end of the season, that ankle's flaring up. You think he's playing in your fantasy championship week 17, week 18, when there's nothing to play for, when the Raiders are last in the division, they're picking top 5. Think they're going to want to give you think Josh Jacobs is going to be feeling like toting the rock 29 times week 17 without a deal, with no contract extension in place, where he's thinking about where he wants to play? This is the terrifying part this year for me, Jay. And we're early, and this could be a little premature, but I'm just telling you where my head is. There are some players that I'm just like, you can see shit getting rough real quick, and by the end of the season, they just shut them down. And Jacobs is one of those guys where it might look good early in the season, but as that team starts to stink it up and that money starts to dry up, he may say, you know what, I got to protect myself. I got to be ready to test the waters in free agency. I don't want to go out there and break my leg like Tony Pollard did in the last game of the season and not be able to get paid. I'm not trying to galaxy brain this one. Josh Jacobs is dope. Josh Jacobs is phenomenal. But the NFL ain't paying running backs, Jay. And you think they want to pay one that gets hurt coming off of the tag? So it's just, this is a bigger philosophical conversation about the position, Jay. And this is not a Josh Jacobs session. This is a running back market session. I don't know, Jay. I don't know. I don't think he's under any type of pressure this year from the same standpoint that Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. There's no pressure. He's a running back.
Yeah.
But what do you think about Jacobs? What's going to happen this year? Because I don't think he's fighting through all those injuries after the Raiders, how they did him last year, and they didn't pay him. So that's just my thoughts, man.
Yeah, I think you hit on all the big points, right? And I mentioned kind of off the top, there is reports that Zamir White could get more work this year because, again, Jacobs toted the rock like crazy last year, and for whatever reason, they didn't play White or they didn't play another running back. He was just the guy at the end of the year, and I don't think they're going to do that this year. We saw the Rams shut down Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford pretty early in the year last year. Now, Kupp obviously had a high ankle sprain. He might have been able to come back, but again, when you're losing, there's no reason to, right? And if you're Josh Jacobs and you're playing on a franchise tag and you're waiting for your contract, and he's a guy who may even hold out because he just doesn't want to play on the tag. And he's just like, forget it. I'll wait, see what happens. But if he does play and he does have any kind of ailment, I'd be doing the same thing. His money's guaranteed, so he doesn't need to play. He just needs to be on the active roster or on the injury report. And if he says, you know what, I can't go, then I wouldn't play either. And I can't blame the guy because he did everything he could last year to get that contract. Like you mentioned, didn't get it. So why bother? You stay healthy, be available, and when you're on the field, be good. But if you're not, 100% or 90%, why risk further injury and put a poor performance on the field, right? And I think that's where, you look at it from all angles and you say all these running backs, whether you're Austin Eckler or Josh Jacobs or even Saquon Barkley, what's the use? And Tony Pollard, you mentioned him as well. What's the use of fighting through these things if your team's not in contention, especially? Tony Pollard, at least the Dallas Cowboys will be relevant. The Raiders could be out of it by week 9. So why even bother if you're Josh Jacobs?
AJ Dillon on this list, Jay.
How did he make this list?
I don't know.
Ray, to us, the dude is virtually irrelevant.
Because somebody told him to put 12 people on there, so you had to dig deep, and he found AJ Dillon. Jay's not under any pressure cooker because AJ Dillon is what he is. He's a big ass fullback that can catch some passes, that can run the ball, that plays softer than he should at 200. I mean, you're that big. You should be running through people. And I think I didn't really like him coming out of Boston College. I bought into him a little bit because he landed on the Packers. And now I'm just kind of like, he's just a guy. He's just a replacement level running back. He's just a replaceable big ass body that lacks wiggle, that doesn't play as physical as his size. I don't know. No one's signing AJ Dillon to be their starting running back. This is
literally nobody. 187 carries each of the last 2 years, barely got over 800 yards. His yards per carry, while I'm not a big yards per carry guy, it dipped pretty significantly the first season, and then it dropped again last year on the same volume. So I think the interesting thing with Dillon is if Aaron Jones is gone, the role seems good, right? Because they do use both backs, and if he can somehow manage to have this big role, but he doesn't profile as that guy right now.
Let me tell you something.
It's going to be what he is.
You remove Aaron Jones from that situation is very bad. Yeah, I mean, it is night and day, the difference between those two running backs. And I love A.J. Dillon. Was in a league with them last year. But we're just talking, from a fantasy scoring perspective, under the pressure cooker, he was a second-round pick running back. If he stinks, they'll just find another second-round pick, third-round pick running back to load in there, And
even if he's good, I don't think he's getting paid. Right? Like, what is he looking like? Maybe a Jamal Williams contract? And Jamal Williams got he got $4 million
$4 million,
or
something like that. Yeah, I'm not.
Nothing.
All right, let's finish this out with the big dog, right? We got Tua. All right?
Let's go.
That's the big dog, right? Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. They picked up his 5th-year option. Was one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL last year. He's got crazy weapons at his disposal. He was a gunslinger at Alabama. Seems like such a great dude. In a tough division, the AFC East. Tua, pressure cooker, is incredibly steamy for 2023 because this is a team that even in a tough division, there are no excuses. You trade for Jalen Ramsey. You sign Tyreek Hill to the type of contract that you have. You pick up that 5th-year option. You pay Vic Fangio everything that you've paid him to come in and run your defense. Doesn't matter about the Bills. Doesn't matter about the Pats. Doesn't matter about the Jets. The Miami Dolphins' goal and objective this season is to go in there, win the AFC East, and compete for a Super Bowl championship. And they will not be able to do that without the left arm of this young man. And the biggest elephant in the room is this quarterback going to be able to remain upright throughout the season and stay healthy, because he does have the history of concussions. We've talked about it multiple times on the show. Tua himself said that he even contemplated retirement over the offseason during portions of time after the season ended. This is truly make or break for Tua this year. And my question to you is, we've talked to a couple of quarterbacks today, Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, all these guys, Russell Wilson. Let's go with the pessimistic side of this first. Let's end on a high note. He goes out there, he gets hurt, there's another concussion, he misses time, and we knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen. But if that happens, Jay, is he done as a quarterback in the NFL? If he goes out there, is concussed again, is out multiple weeks, comes back in, is he done? Is there any team that you think will sign him and invest big money, even Daniel Jones type money, into Tua if he goes out there and has any more head trauma this year? And we're not doctors. We're not trying to analyze should he play or not. But and the reason I ask this question is how scared are you to hold this asset in Dynasty? Because I know for me, I'm terrified. But I just want to get your opinion on that.
So that's where Tua is like probably one of the hardest quarterbacks to put a peg on, and why he's, of all the quarterbacks in here, you can make the case for Dak because of the expectations in Dallas, but I think Tua is probably under the most pressure of maybe any quarterback in the NFL. He's not getting an extension from the Dolphins. It just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. They picked up the 5th-year option. He'll be all right there money-wise, but he's playing for an extension. He's playing for his health. He's a guy who's never played more than 13 games a season, period. He's never started more than 13 games in a season. And part of that was, they were back and forth between him and Ryan Fitzpatrick, but now he had the full year for himself, 2 concussions, gets another concussion, probably done. No one's investing heavy money if he gets another concussion. There's just no way. Because the Dolphins have already said basically they're not willing to pay him right now. But if he has a full season healthy, that could change a lot, because he was the second most efficient quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. And last year, Ray, 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns in only 13 games.
Yeah,
you prorate that over 17 games, and this dude's at 4,600 yards and 36 touchdowns. And people are like, oh my God, right? This is the team that beat the Buffalo Bills, that beat the Baltimore. He went out and beat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, which, this year may be a little bit tougher, but he did that kind of, on his back. He threw 6 touchdowns in that game, 400 yards. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle had great games as well, but he's a guy who, in my opinion, Con just said it right here on the chat, people who are listening. He is a guy who is a legitimate MVP candidate when healthy, and the Miami Dolphins were still 8-5 under him last year. So you look at what they did last year with Tua, they were really good. And so the optimistic view, if we can switch to that side, man, could be really good. And with this revamped defense, with Vic Fangio, with Jalen Ramsey, like, people are kind of sleeping on what the Dolphins could be this year, because as a team, it's difficult to construct a better team than they have right now. And I think you could put them up there with some of the best teams in football. And in my opinion, their team outside of the quarterback is better than the Buffalo Bills.
Man.
Right? Quarterback is huge, but you look at the team and what they have at their disposal, it's hard to say the Dolphins don't have a better team than a lot of rosters in the NFL. But like the Niners, the question mark is around the quarterback.
Man,
it's a big question mark for Tua Tagovailoa.
That's a very interesting take, Jay. And I don't know if I don't think I disagree with you. You put Josh Allen on just flip the quarterbacks, right? You give Josh Allen Miami and put Tua in Buffalo.
He's MVP. He's the MVP. No questions asked.
And what makes this conversation so fascinating, so relevant, and so controversial, so sort of pivot point is because Tua was good when he was playing. He was phenomenal, right? So it's risk versus reward. And I think
he was like, I think 5th in the NFL in passing yards per game. Like
this
guy
was serious MVP consideration at points in time during 2022. It's not like we're talking about a player that we think can be good or has some, like Trey Lance hasn't played a lot, and we're wish casting, right? We're just, I hope. I've seen Tua be phenomenal in this offense, Jay. And if you make that bet and he ends up being, just say, and now let's go to the optimistic side. Let's say he doesn't get another concussion, right? He does stay on the field. He does play all year. He does. I mean, the value that you could get by acquiring or investing in Tua today or buying into him today could be 10, 12, 20-fold, Jay, if he is healthy and he doesn't retire. And that's what makes this such an interesting debate, conundrum, catch-22, is you're talking about a player who, with these weapons, with this coaching staff, has a shot to be a legitimate MVP candidate or at least have his name in that conversation. And that's what makes this so tough to be like, I'm in or out. Me personally, Jay, for fantasy, I had a lot of Andrew Luck on my rosters years ago when he just up and retired out of nowhere. And it just wrecked me. I think I'm just personally going to err on the side of it's not worth the risk for me. With Tua, I've liquidated all Tua shares. I have 0 Tua across my dynasty leagues. I wish him the best. I want him to stay healthy because that is a fun offense to watch when he's slinging the ball deep. Not for me, man. Not my cup of tea. I think he's under a lot of pressure this year. Personally, organizationally.
I think it's personal pressure, though. That's
it's a lot, man. It's a lot. You don't think he thinks about that shit? I'm out in the backyard playing catch with my boy, and I'm thinking about my damn Achilles every time I jump to catch a pass, right, or run to get the ball. So that's where I'm at. I definitely think he is under a lot of different pressures. He's under pressure from his organization. He's under pressure for himself, his family. It's just a tough situation, and I want to be very careful and mindful of how we discuss this because it is his life. It is his career, and this is just a stupid game that we play. But these are decisions that we're faced with in the fantasy market, in Dynasty, that you have to sort of talk about, and there's a way to do it without underplaying or undermining the human element of this. But for me, it's just not worth the risk, Jay. I am just out on Tua, and I'll let him beat me if he stays healthy. Then I'll just have to suffer the consequences. But I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. And the reality is, even though we love Tua, and we talk about this all the time with quarterbacks, and it's important that we point this out, he is somewhat value capped, right? Like, he's not going to be valued above QB8 or QB7. His peak last year was QB8 on KTC, right? So you're looking at a range from somewhere around QB15 to QB8, and that's in his kind of best case scenario because he's not going to get ahead of Justin Herbert or even Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. Like, all these guys are going to be ahead of him in value. And so while the production could be there and he's very efficient and very good and he's great for Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, for fantasy and stuff like that, we'll see what he becomes, but he is rising a little bit slowly. People are kind of backing onto and realizing how good he was last year. But I think the potential implications of what could be will be in the back of people's minds for a long time. It won't just be a year or two. He is definitely labeled injury prone by the community, and there is some negative sentiment towards him because of that. So any type of injury, anytime anything happens with Tua, it will be doom and gloom for him, unfortunately, both in real life and in fantasy.
Tua or Russell Wilson?
I honestly think, like, no bullshit, I think the gamble on Tua is actually worth it if you're giving me Russell Wilson.
Tua or Kirk Cousins?
You got to take Kirk because he's been good every year. He's a
Tua
top 12
or Geno Smith?
I honestly think Tua's worth the risk as well.
Okay.
There, I like Geno, but I think you're talking about longevity. I don't know if Geno has any more longevity than Tua does, right?
Jared Goff or Tua?
You got to take Goff. I think you can make the case Goff's a long-term starter and he'll be really good.
Kenny Pickett or Tua?
I'd be willing to take Pickett there. I'd be willing to take Pickett. I do.
Jordan
think
Love.
Step up. I'd be willing to take Tua.
Daniel Jones.
You take Daniel Jones, I think.
Dak
2 years of
Prescott.
security. Yeah, you take Dak.
All those guys are below Tua on Keep Trade Cut. Every name that we mentioned is being valued behind Tua in Dynasty. So
some worth it, some not worth it, right?
Some worth it, some not worth it. It's an interesting debate. And again, depending on his health, which that's something that I don't care if you're the best fantasy football or regular football or scout evaluator, can't measure health. There's nothing there to give us an indication on if a player's going to be healthy or not. Absolutely nothing. So It's just a risk. Are you willing to take that risk or not? So, all right, Jay, we're at the final block of the show and want to get into a couple of questions. We called for some mailbag questions over in our Discord now. So there were a couple of things that I just wanted to touch on, and hopefully we get some more of these as we go. But let's pull it up and just talk through a couple of different questions that was submitted. And I thought this was an interesting one, given where we are. So shout out to Water with Lemons, and I drink water and lemon and lime every morning. One 20-ounce glass of water with a full lemon and lime gets the liver going, helps with your digestion every morning. Okay. Fresh squeezed lemon and lime and warm water. You gotta take it down. Trust me. Good for your skin. You see this stuff glistening? You see any pimples on my face? It's because I use antioxidants and good shit in my water. But this question here is, he says, a few years ago, people were trading 3 firsts for Jonathan Taylor. Now it feels like everybody is out on RBs. Has the pendulum swung too far? I understand the arguments about how the NFL values the position via contracts, etc., but it is still a valuable fantasy position. On a point-per-game basis, in PPR, the top 5 running backs are on par with the top 5 wide receivers, but the drop-offs for running backs with respects to point-per-game production is much steeper / faster than that for wide receivers, which Warp can tell you that. This feels like the top running backs are scarcer and should be valued rather highly. We're trying to win fantasy football. We need fantasy football producers, right? So it's back to the philosophical conversation about the damn running back position, Jay. And yes, a couple of years ago, people were trading 3 first-round picks in fantasy for Jonathan Taylor, and now you can't get a first for Saquon Barkley. Yep. Scott Connor talks about this all the time. RBs don't matter, but there are a few that do. There are 4 or 5 that are the difference makers that do truly matter, right? And as you look across the dynasty landscape right now, I think there are a couple of more that matter than just 4 or 5. I think Ramondre Stevenson matters. Tony Pollard matters. Of course, at the top with Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, they matter. Austin Eckler matters. These guys matter, but it's the shelf life of the running back position, Jay. There were some people talking on Twitter last night. I view Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year window. I view that shit in a 1 year window, Jay. 1 year window. It's year-to-year game with the running back position. So while I think we are beyond the times of 3 first-round picks for running backs, we will see. If Bijan goes out there and smashes, maybe. But I just think that moving forward, when you invest in a running back, you just need to know what you're getting. What type of running back are you getting? Are you getting a guy that can be a 60%er? Or, and I see so many people pumping up James Cook, you better pray to God he's efficient because he's a 40%er. You better pray to God he's getting 100 targets. He's still getting touchdown opportunity because if not, he's just a satellite back. He's just a guy, man. So I think by and large, the running back position is a replaceable position, but absolutely, and Warp helps you see those cutoffs, those cliffs, those flat tiers, those dead zones at the position. Every year, you're going to have the premium guys, but by and large, Jay, it's just a replaceable position, man.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part is you look at Dynasty, and I think, a few years ago, I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that wide receiver 1 would be ahead of RB1. Like, never. You would never see it.
Never.
And now, Ray, like, honestly, and this is a legitimate question, I'm curious what the chat thinks. Feel free to let us know. Is there any world that Bijan Robinson could surpass Justin Jefferson in ADP? Because I don't think there's any shot in hell it could ever happen. Think about how good he would have to be to pass Justin Jefferson because, like you mentioned, Justin Jefferson, we know, is on our dynasty rosters, for better or worse, for 10 years. Plus, Bijan Robinson is not. And he's way younger, and he's super talented, but we know that's not going to happen. So, and while it shouldn't matter, it does, and that's just how the market works. We draft Patrick Mahomes 101 because he's going to be a quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs forever, and he's the best quarterback in the league. Not necessarily because we think he can be the best quarterback this year. And so you just look around the league and you say, my biggest problem with buying running backs is no matter when you buy them and how you buy them, their value is never going up, right? If you draft Jahmyr Gibbs right now, okay, that's great, but his value is probably not going up much because he's already like RB5. So you look at receivers, you look at tight ends, you look at quarterbacks, you can find value in those markets and find real value upside, the value upside for running back is like almost zero at this point because no one wants to pay up for running backs no matter how good they are.
All right, final mailbag I want to go to, Jay, and I am all in on this shit right now. I mean, there's a term that I've coined, and if you're from the South or you're accustomed to Creole cooking, the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, celery, bell pepper, and onions. It is a requirement. If you're cooking gumbo, etouffee, it is the requirement to have a delicious dish. It's the Holy Trinity. And I think we found something inside of our community with the wide receiver position, and I'm calling it the Holy Trinity of wide receivers. Like if your receiver has these three things, they're probably going to be elite. If they've got 2 or 3, they're probably really good, but there's a reason why they're not elite. If they've got 1 of 3, then they're just, you better be able to tell yourself a story. And if they've got none of the 3 ingredients, then they're probably just cloggers. So this question, again, from Water with Lemons, he said, not sure how I want to ask this, but what do you rely on when you try to find receivers who can make that jump into the higher tier, film or data? Thinking about trying to value a player like Michael Pittman from the Indianapolis Colts. Do you have any input on gauging someone whose key stats, like yards per route run, air yard percentage, are low, but that can be driven by weak quarterback play or short passes last year? Does a QB like A. Rich open that up for Pittman? Some stats look weak, but what's the chance, or is there opportunity for those things to improve? I love this question, Jay, because I've been trying to figure out, man, like how do we identify truly, because I'm telling you, Jay, I keep saying it, OGQ is slowly shifting away from film, the more data. But as I really look into the receiver position, Jay, there are some glaring things that really jump out, especially when you're looking at that trinity of stats that sort of kind of indicate like what this player is, who this player is, and what they're about. And over in our Discord or in the Patreon, patreon.com/allgas, in our database, we're tracking these Trinity features. So I've got Michael Pittman pulled up, right? And you see his target share percentage. We've got this range. This is elite light, 25 to 30%. Target share is phenomenal. His air yard percentage is pretty good. It's average, 29 to almost 35% air yard percentage. But here's where the problem is with Michael Pittman. Yards per route run are under 1.5, which is awful. That is just very, very bad. So bad. Not good. His yak, also below average. Not very good. And shout out to Jordan Backus, the director of analytics over for Destination Devy. He has sort of put this together in a pie graph chart or in a chart to really display the areas in which the wide receiver is deficient. You see target share percentage way above average. Air yard percentage, really good. And everything else, Jay, EPA per target, low. Receiving grade, low. Yards after catch, woof, 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 woof. Not good. 50th percentile is NFL average, right? That's Michael Pittman Jr. And you have to be able to tell yourself a story. If you want this player to move up into another tier, to ascend to another level, then I want you, Jay Rich, to tell me how the hell a player whose yak is so low, and you look at his career, this isn't just a one-year thing. It's sort of who Michael Pittman Jr. is. And this is a way that I'm really about to illustrate and hammer this home. Let's go to Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love me some Amon-Ra, Jay. Love him. Love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look at this. Target share, elite light. Yards per route run, elite. Yak per reception, elite. The thing that is holding Amon-Ra St. Brown back from being in a true difference maker is his air yards, man. And that's the problem, right? He's not getting downfield, Jay. That's why they drafted a Jameson Williams, right? You look at a player like A.J. Brown. Just remember Michael Pittman's chart, right? And this is an elite receiver. Elite, 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 good. Everything is good. Look at his graph. Everything is just filled out spider graph. That's what I want to see. So to answer your direct question, Water with Lemons, you got to be able to tell yourself a story. And in the case of Michael Pittman Jr. and with a running threat quarterback like Anthony Richardson in a team in which I think will run the ball a lot, is Michael Pittman is his yards per route run going to increase this year? Is he going to go down the field more? That's a story that I can't quite tell myself today. So by that measure, does he fulfill that holy trinity. He's got 2 or 3. He's got the bell pepper and the onion, but there's no celery. And without the celery, there is no holy trinity. Without all 3, you're not going to have an elite receiver. Can he do better? Absolutely. But if I'm trying to predict and project, the answer to that question is probably not. He probably is who he is, which is not a bad thing. He's still a threshold receiver, somebody that you want, somebody that you're going to start, but he's not a guy that I have to hold on to. He's not a player that's untradeable. He's not a player that I'm going to build around. He's a threshold replacement level wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, to me, he's just Diontae Johnson with less upside because he has less volume and less touchdown upside. So at that point, why do you even want that guy? And he goes 20 spots ahead of Diontae Johnson in ADP, and he's only a year younger. So you look at all that and you say, okay, he's a fine receiver, and he probably will get decent volume, but he had 141 targets last year. I don't think that's happening with Anthony Richardson at the helm. As much as I like him, I just don't think it's happening. And so people don't want to kind of admit that because they're so different when you look at their physical profiles. But if you actually look at their stats and their metrics and where they win, Diontae Johnson last year, 10.3 yards per reception, and Michael Pittman was 9.3 because that's how bad he was. Everything was short, and there was nothing after the catch for Michael Pittman last year. It was crazy.
And those are key components to the wide receiver holy trinity, Jay. Yak and getting down the field and earning those targets. And he doesn't do those. I can't tell myself that story that they're going to increase in that metric. So you get access to all of that over in our channel. But yeah, that's what it is, man. I appreciate everybody tapping in today. We got a lot of good stuff over here at Destination Devy coming this week. A lot of podcasts, Destination Dynasty, 4D Chess, Off the Line. I've got a new podcast that will be dropping tomorrow. Make sure you check that out. We'll be dropping tomorrow. OGQ has not done a podcast in a long time, but I got a new show, baby. I got a new show dropping tomorrow, so I will record that today. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code WAKEUP for a 100% deposit match up to $100. We're doing good shit over here at DD. Anything you want to say to people before we get out of here, Jay?
Nah, but good luck to everybody that is in our new league.
Heroes versus
Villains draft kicks off today. Let's fucking go!
Come join, man. Come be a part of the squad. Patreon.com/allgas. We have a good time. I hope y'all all have a fantastic Monday. Got my ring on. Stunting like Patrick Mahomes, baby, because I won me a damn Coach Pitch championship. Appreciate y'all tapping in. I love y'all. Stay tapped into everything that we're doing. I'll see y'all next Monday. I'm out. Peace. Before y'all close off of the video, I just want to say thank you for checking out the content on Destination Devy. Really appreciate every single view that we get. And the only thing that I ask is that you hit the thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel, and if you can, comment below for the algorithm. Really helps the channel grow. Now, if you want more exclusive access to me and the entire Destination Devy team, Patreon.com/allgas gives you that access. Now, if your money's a little funny, we do have free content for you. Make sure you subscribe to the All Gas newsletter. There's a link in the description of this video below, and subscribe to the Destination Devy podcast radio feed, where we got all types of shows hitting airwaves every single week. Now y'all can get out of here. I appreciate y'all tapping in. It's All Gas all the time. I love y'all. I'm out of this thing. Peace.